I use Excel a lot. Yeah, I use Excel. But things like PowerPoint, I feel like if I had to do a presentation now, I would probably use Canva or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Canva, first of all, we should say hello to everybody.
Yes, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Tell Me Where I'm Going Wrong. It's not just me and Sean talking about defunct Microsoft suite products from the 1990s. This is a podcast. If you haven't seen us before or listened to us before, we're a podcast which talks about everything and nothing. We're two exes who are really good friends, and we like to catch up once a week and talk about what's going on in our lives, talk about what's happening in the world, etc. How are you, Sean?
I'm all right. Unlike the Venga boys, we don't like to party anymore, do we? Are you a partier?
Occasionally, twice a year, I like to party.
Twice a year?
That would be the Venga boys' comeback song. Twice a year, we like to party.
Is one of those dates on the anniversary of Margaret Thatcher's death?
No. But it may be this weekend, this Saturday night in Leeds, or Friday night? Saturday night, I think, in Leeds, when I go and see the Dolly Parton tribute act. That might be a night to party. I might end up in the arse end of town, which is also, well, I don't know. Does it have an official, that's just what we call it. But does it have an official?
Well, I mean, some people might refer to it as the gay village.
The gay village, yeah.
It's
Swinegate? No.
Is it Bridgend or
Bridgend? I don't know.
It's something like that. There's like lower Briggate or something like that. There's some weird oldie time name for that quarter. I mean, Leeds city centre is not a big place. I don't know why you need a different name.
I know. I was just going to say, it's funny, like coming from like London, and then you go to a city like Leeds, and like in London, of course, every city you have different neighbourhoods, but the neighbourhoods in Leeds city centre, there are like 5 different neighbourhoods in the space of like Soho.
Yeah, a couple of blocks.
Yeah.
But what we were talking, just when we were coming on, we were talking about PowerPoint.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was using, have you seen in Google has a version of that called Slides?
I've not used it, but...
Yeah, so like everything that you can get through Microsoft.
Yeah, Google
has a version of it that's available through their drive online. So I was just trying to use Slides.
What is this for work?
Yeah, I'm doing a talk this week with a group called the Legal Vegan Network.
Oh, yeah.
It's law professionals, so not necessarily partners or solicitors, but people who work for different law firms or in the law field who are vegan. So if there's anyone out there who that sort of pertains to, please look them up and join them as a...
There's, can I do some live research? Because there is another group which must have some crossover with what you're doing. There's a podcast I listen to, and it's sponsored by like it's called like the Animal Law.
Oh yeah, the Animal Law Foundation.
I
just did a blog post about them today.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they put out a report about the disinformation in the food industry.
Oh, right.
And how there's greenwashing about animal welfare by all the major food companies and supermarkets in the UK. And so they've got a report. So I just did a little blog, very lazy, 2 paragraphs, where I said, this report exists and you should go and read it. So if anyone's interested in reading that report, you can either Google the Animal Law Foundation, or you can just go to fatgayvegan.com and click on the link that I've got on my website. So I'm trying to do this presentation. And so they want me to talk about me as a vegan professional, like how I've lived my life, my professional life, and kept my veganism or my compassionate beliefs at the center of that. And I'm approaching it. You can tell me if I'm going wrong here, but I'm approaching it in a very loose, anecdotal way. Like I'm not doing it like a talk with bullet points and facts and figures and things. I'm just sort of telling a series of vignettes, if you will, like a series of stories.
It's like a sketch show.
Yeah,
and you get Kathy Burke to come in and play some characters.
Yeah, well, no, I'll turn around and put like a funny nose on, and then turn around and do like a different character, like my grade 6 teacher, or But that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Is this like a bad approach to take?
Well, I don't know. No, in theory, no. I just, without sort of having seen any of the presentation or the skits.
Well, they're not skits. I'm not really doing skits. I'm not like they're trying to make a monkey out of you.
It's not SNL.
No, but it's much funnier. No, it's
That's not hard.
No, it's kind of like, I'll talk about where I'm from, and like I've got a photo of the Bee Gees because of the Bee Gees being from Redcliffe or living in Redcliffe, and like a scan of, because I'm a writer as well, or I have been a writer in my life. I've got some scans of like books from when I was in school, of like my creative writing from when I was like 11, and just things like that to touch on, to give, instead of just saying when I was young I was interested in writing.
How long does your talk have to go for?
40 minutes.
But does that allow time for questions as well? Or?
Oh my God, there's going to be 5 minutes me talking and then 35 minutes questions from the audience.
But if it's about your vegan professional life, then surely it's going to be mostly about the events that you've run.
Yeah, but I want to give like a taste of, like very brief, it's going to be like 5 minutes of the intro of like where I'm from and what happened to me in my early life that led me to want to explore like activism as a career. So, talking very briefly about where I'm from, the sort of environment that I'm from, what got me into writing and communicating with people, what made me care about looking after kids, that sort of stuff. And then there'll be a lot of talk about beer festivals. And
would you feel comfortable sharing your presentation with our listeners or viewers? Is that something?
It doesn't exist yet.
Well, yeah, when it exists, when it's done, which will be like the night before.
Well, I think it could. I don't know. Yeah. Well, I mean, we talk about a lot of the things on here anyway. I mean, just like anecdotal stories about, like, people always want to know like why I became vegan, and so I tell the story about seeing the chickens in the truck and why people.
If I were you, like, it's just my 2 cents. I would focus a lot on the challenges of running ethically minded events within a vegan framework. So, you can talk about some of the challenges you've experienced with, like in Meetup, like some of the interpersonal things that come up, or the ethical debates that happen, or the ethical questions that come up for you about, should you accept sponsorship from this company or from this organization? Should you partner with this organization? And I don't know, that to me, I mean, without knowing anything about what their other guest speakers have done.
Well, there's another guest speaker who runs an animal sanctuary.
Okay.
So, like I will be touching on that. Like I'll talk about how I moved from, working in education to working within the sort of the more formal version of the vegan sector. And then how I also turned down certain opportunities because of my compassionate ethical framework.
Yeah,
but I just want it to be, I don't want people to feel like they're in a lecture. I want it to feel like a conversation.
Yeah.
And
I don't know, it's so hard, isn't it, when you haven't had any contact with a group before and you just don't really know where to aim, your talk, your presentation. I had to do something at work about 2 years ago now, and it was presenting to a local sort of environmental group about sustainability, and I was trying to sort of pitch it at where I thought they might be interested, but I don't know, it was a very odd situation, just walking into a room with people you've never met before and you don't really know much about their organization. It's hard to know where to pitch stuff.
Well, I do a lot of, early on when I talk to people, I do a few little jokes that aren't big punchline sort of jokes, that are just sort of little, like self-deprecating, often slices of humor.
Endearing.
Yeah, and that gives people an excuse to loosen up,
to
know it's okay to laugh, to know that I'm not taking myself too seriously. Like, I actually met some of this group the other night. They came and did a cooking class with the charity where I work, Made in Hackney, to help raise money for us. and I had to give a sort of a mini little talk. I talked for about 5 or 10 minutes to them. So I apologize that some of them are going to hear some of my same dad jokes again.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a more inclusive way of saying dad jokes? Like that's
daggy jokes. That's just too Australian, though, isn't it?
daggy. Yeah, it's a very Australian word.
Can I just ask you?
Yeah.
Can I just ask you what happened to your plants?
Oh yeah, they're in the other room at the moment because
okay.
Hill was trying to replot some of them and was watering them, and so they're just sort of in other spaces at the moment.
Oh, okay,
but
good. I was concerned for their well-being for a second.
Yeah, I will move some of them back. I mean, if anyone needs an update on some of our plants, I used to have that big. What's that? Is it called a monstera?
Yeah, monstera.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's completely dead now. We left it out in the winter because you told me it had some sort of.
I think it had a mite infection.
Yeah, and so it's just been out there. It's still sort of hanging on, but it's all orange and.
Yeah, I mean, the cold would have damaged the leaves, but that's why I suggested leaving it out, because that would have,
Well, I don't know. Can I chop it back or?
Yeah, but I doubt it's dead completely. I think when we get some warmer weather, it's like sustained warmer weather.
Yeah,
it should come back. But
okay.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't, that's, maybe it's a bit too niche for the pod, but sort of pest control, indoor plant pest control for vegans. It's very, very niche, isn't it? But what do we do?
Talking about niche, well, I'll stop talking about my legal vegan network then. I just thought you might have some advice on the format that the talk or the presentation should take. But
I think those sort of PowerPoint style presentations are just so tired. I mean, they were tired in the 90s, so
yeah.
Even now, like, I just think, is it better to maybe just have like I was trying to think of another way to say it, but I don't know, a butcher's block with, but again, go from two vegans and talking about going into a vegan thing. What do you call those really big pads of paper?
Yeah. I think people do refer to them as butcher's paper.
Butcher's paper.
People call them flip charts.
Flip chart? Okay. Maybe, I would be inclined to do it more like sort of freestyle, casual, but that's obviously more pressure on you. Well, there's a safety in having a presentation.
There's going to be almost zero text on the screen. It's going to be photos. Okay. And the photos are just going to act as prompts for me and a sort of backup. So, if I'm talking about growing up in Redcliffe, I'm going to put one of my school photos on the board. Okay. And then from that, I will talk about where I grew up, how animals were treated, where I grew up, the sort of socioeconomic realities of where I grew up and what my life is like. So that's kind of like, it's a funny photo of me in a school uniform with my teacher and my classmates from 1985. Mm-hmm. And then that will work as a sort of a comic foil in a way. Or there's, a picture of me with Janet Jackson, or there's I was going to talk about when I first started getting into more serious forms of activism, and I have the flyer. I found the flyer for when we did uncivil ceremony. So it was
really?
Yeah, it was the.
Can you share it with me?
Yeah, well, I've got this. You should explain to people what I think we have explained what uncivil ceremony was before.
I don't know. We talked about it on the pod. So, I mean, we talked about what we did. So in 2007, Sean and I were living together as a couple in Brisbane, Australia. And at the time, gay marriage or same-sex marriage wasn't an option, wasn't legal in Australia. And because I'm a British citizen, we were able to, at the British consulate in Brisbane, we were able to enter into a civil partnership. And so we did it not for any romantic reason, like neither of us had any, desire to really sort of formalize the relationship, but we did it as a form of protest to say that, living in Australia, I mean, I'm a dual citizen, so we were both Australian citizens, but we had no legal option to recognize our relationship legally. And so we did this uncivil ceremony, which is obviously a play on the civil partnership, to raise awareness and politicize it. So
in this folder that I had, there's the flyer for the protest and the party. Mm-hmm. There are loads of photos of like the protest itself, like with the Larissa, what was the Greens?
Larissa
Waters.
Waters
Yeah,
and
Larissa Waters.
what was his name? God, you all know what my memory is like. But what's the other guy? He wasn't independent.
If Michelle's listening to this, she'll be screaming.
Michelle
she
will
was
know
there.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
Michelle was a witness in our ceremony.
Yeah, and Stephen, right? Was it Michelle and Stephen?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. But
no, what's Andrew Bartlett? Andrew Bartlett. Yeah, he was what party? He was a Senate.
The Democrats.
The Senate member.
Yeah, but he was Democrats, and then I think he went over to the Greens. But I'm not sure what he does now. I'm out of the loop with local Australian politics.
Has he not come up on your Brisbane news channel?
No, not yet. But so, yeah, I found all of this and photos of when you and Mel performed as White Ice.
Oh yeah,
there are tons of photos from that.
So my friend Mel and I did like to sort of celebrate and to make it a sort of party atmosphere. We made a group. We made a one-time only group called White Ice, and we just did like covers of songs in a sort of dramatic camp wedding band style. So,
but you only did like 3 songs, right?
No, we had 2 sets. We did about 8 or 9 songs. I
don't think you did.
We did. I can tell you. I can tell you, we did. If I could turn back time, we did Into the Groove. We did I Feel the Earth Move. We did Leave Me Alone, I'm Lonely. What else did we do? I mean, we did a Blondie song. I think we did Call Me or Hanging on the Telephone, maybe. Anyway, that's 5. I'm sure we did some more.
Anyway.
Speaking of concerts, though, I have to just follow up from last week. Did you end up getting an Alanis ticket?
No, but I do have a 5 ticket.
Yeah. I think Meryl has a 5 ticket as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are 5 bad boys with the power to rock you. But I got a standing ticket in the pit in front of the stage. So
oh my God.
It's like there's this little area in front of the stage at the O2, and the rest of the floor is like seating and some standing. So I'm in the pit in the front, and I'm going on my own. Is this like embarrassing? Like, am I going to feel...
That sounds like my worst nightmare.
Well, I'd rather be there and close and see it if I'm going than to be at the back of like 18,000 people.
Fair enough. I'm scared to ask, but how much did you pay for that?
It was £100.
Okay,
but the tickets on the floor were like £55. Like, it wasn't an expensive concert, but that's now making me worried that they're not putting any money into the production.
Wow.
You know, like I've seen some gigs.
What are you expecting? I mean,
well, you want like a big LED screen and you want pyrotechnics, you know. But I've been to gigs in arenas where they don't spend any money, and it's like they have like wooden boxes that they roll around, and so the performers can stand on them on different parts of the stage. But I'm hoping the 5 concerts, most of them sold out. Like they're now up to about 23 shows around the UK. Like it's doing really well. So I'm hoping now that they know there's money coming in, they might put a little bit more effort into the production value. But I'm on the frenzy for Gaga for when that.
I know. We'll have to talk about Gaga in a minute, but following up from last week's episode, I caved because in last week's episode I was saying about how Suzanne Vega, you know, I don't mind missing shows because she seems to come to Europe every year. But anyway, after we recorded last week's episode, I went and looked, and I think the tickets went on sale on Friday morning. Mm-hmm. And I completely caved because it's the Albert Hall, and I just thought, I mean, I've seen her in theatres, but I've never seen her in a venue like that. And the Albert Hall is an amazing venue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like for a concert, it is.
Yeah.
So incredible. Such an atmosphere.
How much was that ticket?
So I was looking at just the regular tickets up in up in the fucking eaves or whatever, and they weren't too bad. I think they were like 40 maybe.
Okay.
And then I started looking, and I thought, I should, it's the Albert Hall. It would be nice to be a bit closer. And so anyway, in the end, I ended up spending over £100 on this. Like, I don't I don't get to see the sound check. There was another tier above where you could pay and see the sound check, but that was like £200, I think. But I think I paid about £130 because I just got caught up in the frenzy. And it's, this, I get to sit in the first 10 rows. And I don't know, I just thought the Albert Hall, it would be amazing to see Suzanne play. And also, the video for her song Gypsy was filmed at the Albert Hall. I mean, this would have been, I don't know, 1986? I don't know what year it would have been. Like 80s, right? Gypsy?
No, I don't know.
But anyway, that was filmed at the Albert Hall. And so I suppose there was like a part of me just thinking, it would be like capturing that nostalgic moment.
Yeah, I would really like to go and see her. And it might be one of the things where I wait until just before and see if I can get a ticket. Because, like I'm always moaning about money on here, but I have to be very mindful about Gaga going on sale. And that's something that I don't want to sort of miss out or be compromised on. And then plus I want to take a holiday this year. Mm-hmm. And can't do everything, Sue.
I know. It's hard. Choices, decisions,
and then
priorities.
I've got like a speckled egg problem to support.
I can't. Don't even put the thought in my mind. I've got 2 packets there. So at the moment, Sean and I are having this sort of ongoing struggle against this vegan chocolate company called Mummy Meeks. Is that what it's called?
Mummy Meeks.
I think it's called Mummy Meeks. Anyway, they do these speckled eggs. I don't know if that's what they're even called, are they?
Well,
but they're like...
No, they're not. That's not the brand. Well, that's what we call them.
Yeah, but they're like a vegan version of Cadbury's mini eggs, which I'm sure are ubiquitous. I'm sure they exist all over the world. And they are so fucking good.
What did you say they're like?
Cadbury's mini eggs.
Mini eggs. So they also do a cream egg, which is like a copy of
Cadbury's cream egg.
But these little eggs, they're like hard candy shells with chocolate eggs inside them, like mini, and they've got like speckled sort of colouring on them. And we used to buy a vegan one of these like 15 years ago or something that were called speckled eggs. And so we've always just called them speckled eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in... I can only find them in Waitrose.
Yeah, that's the only place I've seen them.
Like, I can actually see the Waitrose from here. Like, there's a Waitrose. Like,
if there was a Waitrose within walking distance of where I lived, it would be just game over. I would just be sat here among a 4-foot sea of mini eggs.
It'd be game on mole.
So good, so good. So Sean and I are just currently struggling in our food addiction.
Well, I just want them all the time, and it's none of them is enough. Like, no amount I eat is enough to satiate my desire for speckled eggs.
And I can't. I have to have like 3 at a time. Oh, you know what I mean? Like, I can't just
listen. How many are in a packet? About 25.
Oh, as if there were about like 15.
No,
tops.
There's more than that.
No, I think there were about 15.
So I
mean, if I have to, I suppose I could go and open a packet just for research purposes. But
I will. If I open a packet, they all get eaten then and there. Like, there's no having 1 or 2 and then putting them away. I eat them all in one go, in one sitting, maybe without even sitting. Not even sitting down.
And we were saying the other day that we have we have fears because obviously Easter. When is Easter? In April, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Obviously, these are only in the shops at Easter time, and we're scared that already we're gonna struggle to stock up before they go off sale.
And they sell like, I don't know if it's 2 kilo bags, like wholesale from the company. So big plastic vacuum packed bags of these speckled eggs. And I was thinking, maybe I could buy 1 or 2 big packs and then divvy them up into containers. But I would eat them all over the course of 48 hours.
Wouldn't last. Like I said, Sean, the other day, I had a packet and I opened them and I thought, no, I'm going to make this last. And so I put them in the freezer. And then not even 24 hours later, I was eating them frozen. I mean, my teeth are relatively strong, thankfully, but I was just like, I can't have them in the house. I mean, they're that addictive.
Did you wrap your laughing gear around some frozen speckled eggs?
I really did.
I was trying to explain to Hill the other day that saying, wrap your laughing gear, and I had to explain it on... You'd think, right, if, like, even for someone not from Australia, you have to think quite hard what you're talking about.
What laughing gear means, yeah.
Yeah, laughing gear. So it's gear is like equipment, and then obviously laughing, and what equipment do you use to laugh? Your mouth. What does to wrap your mouth around something mean? And then how could that be used as like a dramatic device to say, eat this?
Mm-hmm. Where did it come from? Was it an advert?
Well,
It was.
I don't know if it originally is from a poem or like, I don't know, like Banjo Patterson or something. I don't know where it originally comes from, the etymology of it. But yeah, it was in a, in Australia, once again, the language difference. It was like an ice block, but here you call them ice lollies.
Yeah.
Ice lollies. And I think it was that brand called Billabong. And
I don't remember them.
And it was Streets, Billabong. Like, so the company was
Streets is like walls, I think, in the UK.
Yeah. And so it was Streets, Billabong. I'm pretty sure this was the one. If anyone from Australia is listening and wants to correct my memory, but it was like a kookaburra. And because kookaburras laugh, in inverted commas, they have that cry that sounds like a laugh. Mm-hmm. It was this kookaburra saying, wrap your laughing gear around a street billabong.
Wrap your laughing gear around that. Yeah.
And it's, imagine me trying to explain that to somebody who English is an additional language, and just that concept of, larrikinisms.
It's very odd. I mean, it's very Australian.
I was, because I'm doing these slides for this talk, and I'm looking at old photos of my childhood, and it just got me thinking, like, I don't know if this is the same for everybody, but how much sadness is wrapped up in memories? It was so depressing.
My God, yeah.
Like, looking at my school photos, and I was looking at other children that were in my class, and I was like so sad, thinking, what happened to you? Did you have to go through horrible things like I did? It's not like a joyous thing to look back. Well, for me anyway, it doesn't feel like a joyous thing where I look back and go, oh, the what do you call, like, the sanctity of childhood or the purity of childhood. Like, it was horrible. The
innocence of childhood, yeah.
And I'm in a Facebook group now for my primary school.
Really?
Yeah, and so people are sharing, and I shared this just today. I shared the photo from my 1985 class photo. I put it on there, and I just said, oh, here's a photo I found, and I wonder whatever happened to the teacher, like Mr. Leuer. Wally Leuer, such an Australian name,
Wally.
And I thought, I mean, not to be grim about things, but he's probably not alive still, right? If he was my teacher in 1985, how many years ago was that?
40 years ago, yeah.
I mean, he could be.
He might still be, but it'd be old, like 70 plus, probably.
And I wonder if he's still a school teacher. Like, how weird would that be if he was still a school teacher?
Well, I doubt, yeah. That's unlikely.
Mr. Wally Leuer, if you're watching, please give us a shout out in the comments.
Did you reconnect with any of your old classmates or anything like that?
Not yet. I think they were having like a, what do you call it? Like a school reunion. I don't know if it's my sort of age group, but I think they're just having a general one, or maybe like 100 years of the school, like a centenary of the school.
Right. Okay.
And so I've sort of joined, and if I was back in Australia, I would go. I find that interesting. Like, I like history, but I'm also finding it cathartic. I sound like Madonna in Truth or Dare. Like, to go back and try and revisit some of these things that I distanced myself from. Yeah. So even this talk that I'm doing for the Legal Vegan Network, having to stand up and talk about where I'm from, and not in too much detail, talking about what I've gone through or what I've experienced, I find it quite cathartic. It's like a form of therapy, isn't it? To talk about.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of talking therapy is. It's just talking about your life, talking about your experiences.
And but the sadness of childhood or past experiences weighs so heavy, and it's a real skill that you learn, or some people don't learn. Some of us do it better than others, of managing that, because it never goes away. You just manage it differently, right?
Yeah.
it might feel like it diminishes a little, or you feel like you get a bit more of a handle on it. What in your childhood, when you think back to it, reminds you of that heavy weight? What have you got in your life that makes you feel like sort of sadness?
I mean, it's weird because I associate it with good things as well. But like when I listened to when David Lynch died, last month, and I was listening back to the original Twin Peaks, like the TV show soundtrack.
Yeah.
Just listening to that, it did take me back to a period that was quite difficult. So yeah, music sometimes it's the sound of trains as well, because we lived in a house that backed onto the train line in Chiswick, and hearing that sound sometimes takes me back there. It's funny.
It's so weird. I mean, this might lead us on to talking about the Gaga album, because this is going to sound really weird and corny. But, I mean, obviously the Gaga album is amazing. The new Lady Gaga album came out this week. It's called MAYHEM. And if you're into pop music or any sort of music, I recommend listening to it. But it's kind of put me in this reflective, retrospective mood, because there are so many sounds on the album that are reflective of my childhood.
Yeah,
like there are songs on there that sound like they're straight out of the 80s, but not in a cheesy Dua Lipa kind of way.
No, just like little production things that they've done. Like there's loads of like Duran Duran style stuff on there.
Prince and David Bowie and Susie and the Banshees. And so, like music can transport you, like you just said. Like art or music or film can transport you back to a time and the associated feelings. This album by Lady Gaga is making me feel the sadness of childhood. Even though I love the album and I can't stop listening to it, it's actually triggering all of these feelings in me. Like there are sounds on that sound like outros from 80s movies that I used to watch, or it sounds like a soundtrack to like a Michael Keaton like comedy, or Desperately Seeking Susan background music, or incidental music from, like, I don't know, like it's so weird how evocative that album is for me, because it's like she's gone and studied this period of time but then made it fresh and modern. It's incredible. What's your favorite song on the album?
I mean, I waver, but I think overall it's got to be How Bad Do You Want Me? I think that's just such an incredible song. I think I was telling you, I went on a walk on Sunday with some people, and on the way there I'd been listening to the Gaga album, and then like on this walk we were walking for about 3 hours. On this walk I just was in my head, like I'd be talking to people, and in my head I would just like playing the song over in my head over and over. It's such an earworm. It's such a good song.
I haven't had an album like this impact me in a very long time. I mean, I think the last album that I really got into where I was, oh, this is great, was the Chapel Roan album, where I was like, oh yeah, this is really moving me. But even then, I would say there were a couple of songs that lagged a little behind the others. Like they kind of made me feel like, oh yeah, I'm glad they're there, and they give me a breather from the rest of the album being so spectacular. But the Chapel Roan album wasn't tens across the board. It was like tens, like a row of tens, and then a 7, and then a 10, and then an 8. And for me, this Gaga album is all tens. And I know not everyone feels that way. I know that there are people that go, oh yeah, like I like most of the songs, but there's this one that I didn't catch.
What's your favorite?
It's very hard for me to pick, because like when I'm listening to one of the tracks, I think this is spectacular and I can't think of anything else. So even songs that I didn't feel were my favorite at the beginning, like Don't Call Tonight or Love Drug, when I listen to them now, I'm like, this is fucking spectacular. Like this is a really well-made pop song.
The other thing I really like about it is there are so many throwbacks to her early stuff as well. There are so many little hooks that she uses, or just like the way that she meters out the lyrics in songs that throw straight back to like her early stuff, which I love.
You
so if I said to you, here's a 2-kilogram bag of speckled eggs, you can only have it if you pick one song from the album, which one would you pick?
Oh my God. I don't know. Let me open it up.
Or would you just kill me for the eggs?
Yeah, just crack the bag of eggs over your head. I don't know. Okay. Disease is great, right? But like Abracadabra is like 100 out of 10. Like it's like one of the best pop songs I think ever recorded. I don't know. I think it would be easier for me to pick the ones that could be removed if I had to.
No, you don't get the eggs. No eggs until you pick one song.
Probably, if I had just had to pick one for the rest of my life, I might pick Blade of Grass.
Oh, really? Okay.
It is so emotional. Like this is one of those ones that sounds like this 80s power ballad. Like it's, like the album in a weird way reminds me of like Pat Benatar.
Yeah.
And I really associate those sorts of dark pop sounds that are tinged with sadness with my childhood in the 80s. And so people like Pat Benatar or Heart, that's got that because there's these rock vibes, but then there are these crazy, like incredible, like pop melodies, like top line melodies. And then there are these like layered vocals, like just like 7 different vocals coming in from different areas. And then these incredible sound effects. But maybe Blade of Grass, because it's a beautiful song, but I really appreciate the production on it. And then maybe a close second would be
no second. One song only.
Well, what about you? Would it be?
It would be How Bad Do You Want Me? Because I listened to it and I'm like, this is incredible. And then I listened to the other songs on the album and I'm like, oh my God, this is really good. And then I get to the end and I'm like, I really need to hear How Bad Do You Want Me again. Like I actually play it over and over. Like I'm borderline obsessed with that song at the moment.
Yeah, and we were saying the other day when we were talking about it, yes, that's just how obsessed we are with it. We've had this conversation already, but it obviously sounds a lot like Taylor Swift, especially reminiscent of the work she has done with Jack Antonoff.
Yeah, very. Yeah, and it's also it's I don't think it's sampling, but it's interpolating that Yazoo song as well.
Only You.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like a Taylor / Jack Antonoff song, but done better. Like it's like as if somebody had fed the concept or the artistic output of Taylor Swift into AI and said, make this better, like increase this by 50%. Yeah. Because it is one of the catchiest pop songs I've ever heard in my life. And it's really so joyous. It's like, it's so fun to listen to. You just want to hear it. And when the hook of the chorus is coming, and when it comes, you're still not ready for it. It's so infectious.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. But maybe we shouldn't go on and on and on about it, because unless this is a Gaga Stan podcast, which it's not. I don't think
it ties in, right? Because when was the last time an album sort of evoked those sorts of feelings in you?
I think the Chapel Roan album, Midwest Princess, is pretty incredible. So, that's the sort of album I would play, and then I would go back and play it again. Like it's such a good album. I don't know. Yeah, it's different because the way I consume music has changed so much.
Yeah.
So it's so different now.
It's been such a long time for me that there have been albums that I listen to in their entirety, because that's not how music is marketed or packaged anymore. Yeah. It's really about trying to get people to listen to songs or having big streaming songs. And so The Rise and Fall of Midwest Princess by Chapel Roan was one of the only albums in the last few years that I can really think of as a complete packaged piece of artwork where you want to listen from beginning to end. And this Gaga album is like that. It tells a story, and the way it ends with that Bruno Mars song is so perfect, coming out of the Blade of Grass, where she's talking about being in love with somebody and all they've got is each other, and then there's a song about dying with somebody. It's so well done, and it's a real journey from like point A to point B. Like, incredible.
Yeah, it is truly incredible. When just to go back to what we were talking about, you were talking about Australia before and nostalgia. I don't know if you saw, but Toni Collette popped up There was a surprise guest at a screening of Muriel's Wedding in Glasgow last week. Did you see that?
Yep.
And it was just so that just filled me with such joy. I would have loved to have been there. I mean, Muriel's Wedding is one of, if not my favorite film.
It's also one of, like what we're talking about here, how art can conjure sadness.
Yeah.
It's weirdly enjoyable to experience. It is one of the saddest, most heartbreaking films, but it's got a happy ending, kind of.
Yeah. It's also such joy as well. And
Yeah, but I was talking about all these old photos that I was digging up on this hard drive. I found the photo of me with Toni Collette at the Muriel's Wedding Australian premiere.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Hill was saying to me, well, that's incredible. But then he was like looking at me all puzzled, and he was like, how did you know to get a photo with her because she wasn't famous? Like, I mean, that was her first film, right?
I think so, yeah.
And I mean, she was not famous. Like, no. She wasn't, anyone knew her. And so I think I won tickets because I used to always enter those local street press competitions to like win this new album that's out or win 2 tickets to a movie premiere. And I won tickets to go and see the Australian premiere of Muriel's Wedding. And it was in the Queen Street Mall in Hoyt's Cinema. I don't even know if Hoyt's Cinemas still exist. And they had, is it PJ Hogan, the director of that film?
Yeah, I think so.
I think they were there, and I think, I know Toni Collette was there, and there was some other people, like, there used to be that movie review show on SBS in Australia.
Margaret and David.
Yeah, they were there.
Yeah.
And after I didn't know anything about the movie.
Was Rachel Griffiths there? Or?
I can't remember.
Kylie was there, right? Kylie was there?
Yes, I had a photo. I took a photo with Kylie, and oh my God, that's a whole nother story. I'm so embarrassed by that. But anyway, after the movie, because I didn't know anything about it going in, and it's such an incredible film.
Oh my God, it's
and
amazing.
So could you imagine my shock as like the night, no one had ever seen this film before. And we all just came out of there sort of stunned, like, this is incredible. And in the lobby of the cinema, there was like film crew for the movie show or whatever it was called with David and Margaret. And as Toni Collette came out, people were throwing confetti because, it's all based around wanting to get married. And I went up and spoke to her, and I remember saying, this was such an incredible movie. Like, I'm so happy I got to see it. This is incredible. Can I get a photo with you? And she said, oh, no one's ever asked me to have a photo before.
Oh,
and
wow.
I said, oh, well, get used to it. I said, I think it's going to happen a lot to you in your life. And she was like, oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And because she's so down to earth and lovely. And I think it's so weird now to think back to that and have that memory and to know what she has become.
Yeah.
Like one of the most celebrated actors on the planet.
Yeah.
And seeing that footage of her in Glasgow dancing on stage, that screen was so joyous and lovely to see.
Yeah.
But her caption that she wrote under that, did you see the post that she did about it?
Yeah, that she was invited to do like a little video message to the audience. And I don't know if she lives in London, but she implied that she was living or was in London. Yeah. And she said rather than send a video message, she thought she'd get the train up to Glasgow and surprise them. So, yeah. Yeah,
and it kind of is weird to me that movie isn't more celebrated.
Yeah.
Like, that it doesn't have, like we talk a lot about the Prince Charles Cinema. I'm going there tonight to see Barbed Wire. But
is that tonight? Oh, I have to talk to you about The Last Showgirl.
Yeah. So I don't think I've ever seen it on their schedule. I don't think I've ever seen Muriel's Wedding.
Oh, really? I don't know, actually. I don't think I've ever seen it on the big screen.
Well, I've only ever seen it that once, and that was the premiere.
On the big screen, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, that's the only time I've seen it on a big screen. And every other time it's either been on a kind of rip, because I think maybe for a while it was not available.
What year was it released?
I can't remember. No, in the 90s.
Was it 90s? Was it 89 or 90?
No, it must have been in the 90s. Okay. Because I got a photo with Kylie, and Kylie might have been 91. I don't know.
Okay. Why was she at the Brisbane? It wasn't the Australian premiere, was it? It was just Brisbane.
It was. And for some reason,
why they had it in Brisbane?
Yeah, I don't know. And it was, it was like, well, in the UK it says 95.
Really?
What?
No.
Oh, but it was 94 in Australia.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
That seems weird to me. That seems quite much
Yeah.
later than I would have thought.
I
So I was 20 when it came out.
Because I remember when I first, I don't know if I feel like I may have told this story on the podcast before, but when I moved to Australia and I was living in that house in Darlinghurst, just off Oxford Street, and our local video shop was Videorama on Oxford Street, which is the video store that they use in the film.
Yeah.
And that Mariel goes to work in when she moves to Sydney. And it was just so, I mean, it was magical. I mean, it felt magical living so close to that and that film just existing. And
Was it Videorama or
Videorama or Videodrama? I don't know, actually. I can't remember.
I wonder what that shop is now.
Yeah. If it's anything like London, it will be like an American candy shop.
Or a Harry Potter shop.
Yeah.
So talking of Australia again, this is also a bit of an Australian podcast. But, recently, and you would have seen on the news that there was a cyclone headed to my hometown of Brisbane. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to our friend Amy, and she was without power. I don't know if she still is or not, but they were without power. But did you see the comment on last week's episode on YouTube that Michelle left?
Oh, do you know what I did? And I didn't get it. I think, hang on, let me look at it now. Because I looked at it and I was like, I'm not quite sure what she means there. Let me dig it up.
No, not the one about the Gucci episode. The other one about the CPAP.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking about the Gucci. I didn't get the Gucci thing. Hang on.
Well, I don't know. I think that's like youth slang for something being cool.
Very Gucci episode, 3 stars. Okay, no, okay. What does Michelle say? What can we do if a cyclone takes out the power? Happened recently. Recommendations, battery packs welcome.
Yeah, because, Michelle also uses a CPAP machine.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
She's talking about what are we meant to do if we use a CPAP machine and we've got no power.
Yeah. Will somebody please think of the CPAP users?
Oh, my face is so sore from my CPAP. I'm waiting on a new... Here's the
CPAP. Not come yet?
No, and I can't get hold of anybody at the hospital. I think I'm going to have to go there and actually just walk up to a counter and ask them for help.
So sorry, go on.
Yeah, I have to wear it very tight to make sure that the air doesn't leak out of it. And it's really irritating the skin on my face. And so I wake up with these red lines and they take all day to disappear. Like I've got you can see the redness, but I've got a little bit of makeup on it now.
Yeah.
It's very painful. And so I'm waiting for a new mask because some nights it doesn't hurt and then some nights it does and I can't work out why. But it's a real pain to upkeep a CPAP. Like you're meant to wash it in warm soapy water every day and wash the hose once a week. And it's just like I do it. But
sounds like a lot of faff. I mean, it's good that, you've got it, but it does sound like a lot of faff. So you're seeing Barbed Wire tonight at the Prince Charles.
Yes.
I haven't seen Barbed Wire in about, 20 years.
Well, more. I'd say it'd be more.
Is it even... I don't think we ever owned it on DVD, did we?
Oh, yeah.
Did we?
We would have had it on DVD or VHS for sure.
Okay.
And I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think I used to have a Barbed Wire doll.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I used to have a few dolls. I remember I found a Michael Jackson doll on the street once, like at a clothing bin, where people go and donate, and it was sticking out of the clothing bin, and I took it and we just twisted it or something. And then I used to have a Jerry Halliwell Spice Girls doll, and I used to have the Barbed Wire doll. I can't remember if I had any others. Looking back at all these old photos, you'll just scream at some of these photos that I found from like Harcourt Street in New Farm days, and like you and Sal at Movie World on the Gold Coast. Do you remember when we went to Movie World?
Yeah, I do.
I was laughing at the fashions. Do you remember we both went through about 15 years of, because our weight would go up and down all the time, we used to just wear checked button-up shirts and like cargo shorts and walking boots. like a real fat person.
I don't remember the walking boots.
Or
But
black boots or some sort of
okay.
boots, lace-up boots. And so there's photos of you at Movie World and you're wearing that. What was that T-shirt you used to have? And it was like green and gold with the gold lettering on it with a gold ringer around the neck.
Oh, it's like an Abercrombie or something.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was an Abercrombie.
Yeah,
and then you
yeah.
had like some sort of open checked or Hawaiian shirt open over it with shorts and these boots on. And then there was a photo of you feeding horses in the Shannon, wearing a check shirt and shorts.
Oh my
and
God,
then there's a photo of you like,
You've got to send me these photos. You can't just describe them to me. You've got to share them.
I'm trying to load them into my Google Drive.
Okay.
So you can, and then I can give you access to it and you can see. But there's all sorts of stuff. I mean, things from flyers I made for movie nights when I was at university, and all sorts of stuff. So what was the last showgirl like?
The Last Showgirl, it was good. I mean, it wasn't amazing. It wasn't, I don't know if it's the sort of film I would ever go back and watch again, but I thought it was decent. It was poignant. There was a sadness to it, which I thought, I don't really know much about who wrote it, but it really encapsulates I thought it really encapsulated well the sadness of Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Because, I love Las Vegas, but I love it in a sort of, I don't know if ironic is the right word, but, in a way that I accept that there is an inherent sadness in Las Vegas about the sort of, this desire for a quick fix to life, or whether it's people who live there or visiting, hoping to, gamble and win big and stuff like that. There's just an inherent sadness, and it's such a beautiful part of the world, like that desert scenery and the mountains around there, just so incredibly beautiful and moving. And then you've got this weird artificial glitzy, gaudy city that's sprung up in the desert like that, and it's it really, I'm not going to give too many spoilers away, I suppose, but it's about a show, like a long-running sort of cabaret, typical Vegas showgirls show that's been running for decades, coming to an end, getting closed down, and Pamela Anderson plays one of the longest-serving member of that show, and just sort of what she's going to do with her life afterwards, and the sort of going back and her really fractured relationship with her daughter and stuff like that. It's really sad and well portrayed. I thought Pamela Anderson's performance was good. It wasn't amazing. I thought
so
it was
you don't
pretty
think
good.
that she sort of deserved the Oscar hype that was sort of
I don't really think so, no. It was good, but it wasn't, it didn't blow me away. Jamie Lee Curtis was pretty good. That was pretty good. Billy Lord was good. It was a perfectly good film. I'm not sure what Margaret and David would say.
Yeah. I wanted to see it, but I've heard similar reviews or read similar reviews to what you've said, that people have said, yeah, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so much information to consume in this day and age. Something has to be recommended more than it just being okay.
I think you would really enjoy it, because I know how much you love Pam, and I know how much you love Las Vegas and
sadness.
And sadness, yeah. And fractured relationships. So I think you would actually really enjoy it.
Just to get back onto Gaga for a second.
It's Gaga or speckled eggs?
Gaga, well, imagine if she brought out a range of limited edition speckled eggs for MAYHEM. But, I was listening to an interview with her this week, and she was talking about how she really has not been well for a long time in her career. And
in what sense? Physically or mentally?
Well, mentally and physically. She also had physical ailments. But it really struck a chord with me where she just openly said that she was living with psychosis for a lot of period of time, and even around Chromatica, and that she wasn't engaged with reality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard for people who haven't experienced that sort of like mental anguish or hardship to actually know that what it means to live through that. And it made me so sad. And that's why even listening to that new album, having that piece of information in my brain about her and what she survived.
Actually, having just heard that information, thinking about some of those songs, that adds a whole new layer.
And, for so long as a fan, I've been a fan of Lady Gaga since 2008, I think. And I could see, like you can see from the outside that she struggled with, being stable or well or feeling her best. And whether that was physical or mental, I saw her throw up on stage twice on 2 different occasions. There have been shows cancelled. She's, some of her behavior, I think, is a manifestation of her struggles. Mm-hmm. Not to say that every artistic choice she's ever made is that. Like, I think sometimes she's just done stuff because she wants to do it. But now she seems a lot happier and a lot more sort of, I don't know if stable is the right word, or less anguished. Mm-hmm. But hearing her speak about having lived with psychosis and having to sort of disappear from public eye. I mean, she's still been around, but that album came out 5 years ago. And she's been doing things, but it was so heartbreaking to hear because, I went through something really similar in my life, and it is just, I don't know, it's very lonely feeling, and I just felt very sad for her. And you talking about that Las Vegas themed movie with Pamela Anderson, and just that whole mindset of Vegas of instant gratification. And it really...
and escapism as well. You know, like it really is escapism. Yeah. And that's actually, the word I probably was looking for when I was saying, about people go there looking for, get rich or, it's escapism.
And I think because, Gaga did that residency for a few years in Vegas. And I think she would have been in a time where she self-identified as living with psychosis, living in a hotel or a mansion in Vegas, doing that same show night after night in a city designed for escapism and instant gratification.
Yeah.
How grueling would that be to your psyche, like to come out of that? Anyway, it just got me thinking about...
I don't know if we've really got time to go into it and do it justice, but can you just, because I kind of have an idea, when you say psychosis, I kind of have an idea about what that means, but maybe can you feel comfortable talking about it, like just in general terms, about what psychosis means to you?
I can talk about my personal experience, because also, mind you, like most people, I'm undiagnosed in a lot of the things that I talk about. So if I say I have depression, I've never had a clinical physician say to me or put on paper, you're depressed. But psychosis is, I'm reading from Wikipedia here, psychosis is a condition of the mind or psyche that results in difficulties determining what is real and what is not real.
Right.
And so obviously there is a really big, broad experience of living through or living with psychosis. But it can manifest in sleep problems, social withdrawal, lack of motivation, and difficulties carrying out daily activities. And so for me, like I know that I had a extreme mental health crisis that went on for a very long time, many years. And I suppose I'm still living with it, like the remnants of it. But I was detached from reality. And I don't know how other best way to describe it other than that, where I would sometimes not be able to do everyday activities or self-care routines for days at a time, and I would lose track of time, or I would sometimes find myself in a location that I don't remember making the choice to go there, like in a supermarket. I would sometimes just start crying in the supermarket and not knowing that I was in the supermarket. And it was extreme, like if I was in the height of it, I was living in Mexico. And I think that I say this, but I think when I was if I had been living in London, I might have been hospitalized, but I didn't have the access to that sort of care. But now saying that and experiencing NHS here, maybe I wouldn't have been anyway.
Yeah, it has to be, to get hospitalized, it has to be pretty bad, where you're a harm to others or to yourself, I think.
Yeah, and then, there were things that were compounded the mental health struggles that I had around that, and coming out of that psychotic sort of breaks were COVID and the financial burdens that COVID put on me and the stress. And then, obviously that tied in with I have a compulsive eating disorder. I mean, we can go on. And you were right, we probably don't have time as we're nearing the end of our hour. But it really, at its core, is you break from reality, or your mind breaks from reality.
Because, for me, like, when you hear the word psychosis or psychotic, I think we are exposed to probably the most extreme representations of that. But in reality, I suppose it's a sliding scale, or it can take many forms. And so, it's not always about like, hearing voices or, being confused about what's real and what's not. It's more just like, like a psychotic fracture, a mental fracture.
And I know there are periods in my time where I've lived through traumatic experiences where I feel like I felt like that happened to my brain. Like I can remember feeling like my brain was detaching from reality, and it's a trauma response. And so for someone like Gaga, she was also a pop star performing 6 nights a week in Las Vegas.
Like that would fracture your brain anyway. Like even if you went into it with like the healthiest possible mind going, you would still experiencing that sort of attention and focus.
And also, like, somebody asked her in one of these recent interviews, what are you scared of? And she'd been very happy in this interview. She'd been talking and fun and my favorite songs and music influences, and this sadness came over her. Like it was unfiltered. And she said, I'm scared of being alone. And that to me really struck a chord with me, because I have a fear of abandonment and attachment issues. And she said her biggest fear is going through life and not having someone to share, her feelings with, and to have the support of somebody next to her. And, then you hear things like that and about psychosis, and then you listen to this album. I mean, it's a straight up, absolute killer pop album, but there's so much sadness in it, but also hopeful at the same time. So, yeah, it's very emotional for me. Like I actually feel emotional talking about it. I know it sounds corny to talk about that, about like pop music like that, but it is really emotional. And this album has affected me like not many albums in my life have. It's very, very special.
Last year, I was house sitting for our friend Lynn in Malibu, and house sitting and cat sitting for Lynn in Malibu. And the juice bar at the end of her street, I mean, Gaga lives somewhere in the neighborhood. I don't know where. And Lynn has seen Gaga in this juice bar like many, many times. And so I would go down to this like little mall, like mini shopping mall, plaza, whatever you call it. I'd go to the supermarket and I might like pop into the juice bar or walk past. I never saw Gaga, but I was as hopeful as I was that I would see her. I was also terrified about what I would do if I did see her, because I mean, this is before knowing what you've just said about experiencing psychosis, but obviously she's just a person, and she's going down to get her juice or whatever. Like, you kind of think you don't want to bother people, but then I also know how much I love her and how I probably wouldn't be able to help myself, and I probably would like just have to say something to her, like, whether it was just like, oh my, your music means so much to me, but also how much it means to have an ally in her, like how much she stood up for the queer community.
But then you also,
speaking of, have you seen the little ASMR video she's done about the queer community?
Oh yeah. But you also don't want to be a contributor to her turmoil, because
exactly,
we are little monsters. We are the fame monster. We are that part of her that she loves and hates and she's trapped by.
Mhm.
And so going up to her when she's just doing something like going into a juice bar.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
because that's what I mean. Like, it's one thing if she's coming out of a venue after a gig, or she's going in or out of her hotel when she's on tour. She kind of knows that fans are going to be there. She kind of expects it, and so yeah, it was like, oh, this is just a little juice bar at the end of her street or whatever. Just her neighborhood juice bar. She doesn't want to be bothered, and so anyway. I mean, of course, it's a moot point because I never did see her, but I was just. Every time I went past, I was like, "Oh my god, what would I do? What would I be able to like just hold back?" Anyway, it never happened. So
yeah, and I suppose all you can say is, "Hey, I love your music. It's meant so much to me. Thank you," and then that's it. And then you walk away because anything further than that is an infringement on her personal space and her dignity, and you know, expecting anything from her in that space and time is just unreasonable, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny because where I work, not often, but we occasionally get celebrities come in, and no one's come in that I'm like a huge fan of or anything like that. But obviously, you do a double take at first, and so I always have to like almost remind myself not to like say something stupid or not stupid, but because you don't know these people. This is it's going back to what we've talked about in the past about parasocial relationships.
Yeah.
You feel a familiarity with celebrities because you see them on your screen. And of course, you're just some person working in a shop or whatever, and it would be so weird. And I'm sure they're used to it, but it would just be so weird and inappropriate to have that like sense of familiarity with somebody.
I get a little taste of that as Fat Gay Vegan.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've been known by a small portion of the community for about 15 years now.
Yeah.
And like when people come up to me, especially in a situation where I'm not being Fat Gay Vegan, like I'm not at a vegan show or Made in Hackney or somewhere, and they want some of my time, it's not usually like a big imposition because, I'm not Gaga. I haven't got the biggest selling song on the planet. Like I'm just me. But if I'm asleep on the bus and this has happened and somebody wakes me up and says, "Are you Fat Gay Vegan?" I feel a little, not hurt, but I feel a little compromised, Yeah. And so imagine times that by a million. Imagine being super famous and not being able to do anything. Like everyone looking at you everywhere you went.
Yeah. I remember that one time we were walking along, I don't know what the road's called, but it's the road that goes from Liverpool Street Station up towards Shoreditch. So I can't remember the name of the road, but anyway. And I remember a woman and her mum stopped you there. And I think it's when you had a column in that, was it Vegan Life magazine?
Yeah.
I think she recognized you from that. And I remember thinking, God, that would be so weird to be like, not, to be stopped on the street, like when you're just going about your business, like living your life, and to have your personal space kind of invaded like that. And I mean, she was lovely. I mean, it was not an unpleasant interaction, but just that. So and that would obviously, even if you didn't have psychosis beforehand, that would, I'm sure, contribute to that because you would lose all sense of who you were in the world. And
if you're struggling with making connections with reality anyway, and then people are coming up to you and saying, "Oh, I love you so much, you've saved my life," I mean, it would actually break your brain. You wouldn't be able to deal with that. Anyway, maybe we could have another, not to be too negative on the pod, Sue, but maybe we need to talk a bit more about mental health and I think especially for people our age and our generation, it's around this time where things, you either start sorting them out or they start falling apart. Like it's a real sort of like time in our lives, from, I'd say anywhere from 30 onwards, you start to really have to unpack and deal with the things that go on in your life. So I think it would be a nice conversation to have, ongoing really. We should always talk about our mental health and well-being. Yeah.
All right. Well, tune in next week, folks, for a deep and meaningful discussion about psychosis, depression. Yes. Anyway, in the meantime, I think Sean and I have got to go and compulsively eat some speckled eggs.
I'm going to buy some.
Mummy Meegs, if you're watching, if you're listening, Mummy Meegs, and you feel like sending us some
Well, they did
speckled
send
eggs.
me those 80 cream eggs to hand out at my event.
Yeah, I mean, okay, no, not to be shady. I like the cream eggs, they're okay, but it's all about the speckled eggs for me.
Don't bite the sugary hand that feeds you.
But it's not feeding me at the moment, that's the thing.
Well,
so
I'm going to buy some.
Meeks...
I'm going to buy some speckled eggs to take to the Prince Charles tonight.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah,
Bit of
I had some when I watched the last show, Girl, of course.
Well, for Penny, and because her being vegan as well, I should really eat some speckled eggs in honor of that.
Exactly. All right, Sean, where can people find you if they want to know more?
You can go to fatgayvegan.com, and from there you'll find links to all sorts of things, including the charity that I work for called Made in Hackney, and my Instagram page, which is also just at fatgayvegan if you want to search for that. And here every week with Josh talking about CPAP machines. And what about you, Josh? Where can people find you?
People can find me at joshandthejumpstarts.com. You can find links to my Instagram and Spotify pages there as well. Please do stream my songs. Please add me as a favorite artist or follow me or whatever it is that you do on Spotify. And also, of course, please like this page, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a comment, let us know, anything. If you have similar issues around speckled eggs by Mummy Meeks, or if you're experiencing psychosis, we're here for everything.
Or if you're an international pop star who loves her little monsters and would like to talk to us.
Yeah. But otherwise, we will be back in your feeds this time next week. And until then, stay safe, and we'll see you then.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Pause up.